This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland right of the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. There's no cost, no commitment, and no chance that your Cleveland Cavaliers are going to miss the playoffs. They became the first team in the NBA to officially clinch a playoff spot with their win over the Miami Heat. The winning streak is up to 12 games, and my co-host is Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
That was seamless, brother man. I'm doing good. It's a really weird thing. Where Justin, I gotta say, this team on a 12-game winning streak might be slumping a little. It's just this really weird thing where they're not playing their best basketball. Mike Lucas, kind of asked Kenny about this as much in the postgame, where he was just kind of like, I can't call it a slump. But it's not your best basketball over the last couple of days, and I think on one hand, obviously it's not crazy fun that they're not playing their best basketball, but it's also in a weird way kind of fun, because it's like normally when a team is going through this the 4-6, 3-4, and they're not their sharpest, you just lose and you're really grumpy about it, and instead we just have this team that keeps finding ways to win, in all these different ways. And I know that some people are sick of hearing the 2015-2016 Warriors comparisons with this team, but those teams did have a certain air of inevitability to them, where it's like no matter how much the lead is, no matter how much you fought back to take the lead, that they were always going to be just lurking and waiting to knock you out at the very last second. And every bounce would go their way. Every foot on the line would go their way. And it just kind of feels like this Cavs team just has that kind of destiny air about them that is really, really fun. And it's got to be really frustrating for the other teams.
It's got to be frustrating. Carter, I love you, buddy, but I think you're missing the bigger picture here. When we passed that win over the Boston Celtics, we said, that's kind of the last real test. That's the last time we play a real contender. The rest of the regular season is going to be about trying some stuff, working on things that you have to be ready for in the playoffs. I will present to you a theory. The Cleveland Cavaliers realize they don't have a lot of experience closing games. The starters don't get to play in fourth quarters very often. Not a lot of experience coming from behind. So you let these teams hang around. You give yourself a challenge. You put yourself behind, and then you come back and you win those games. That's very clearly what's happening here,
brother. It's what a year. What an unbelievable season. Our boy Ziggy had, I think, my favorite Cavs stat of the year, which is that if the Cavs lost every game that wasn't a part of these 3-game winning streaks, they'd still be the 3 seed in the East. They have 39 wins on win streaks this year. If the Lakers beat New York tomorrow and the Cavs win their next one, they would be 40 games in win streaks. They would be the 2 seed. Like, it's an unbelievable number of streaks. I mean, only the second team in NBA history to have 3 win streaks of 12 or more. This team is just unbelievable. What a run. I keep thinking about like DeAndre Hunter and just what he must think every day going to work. Be like, I guess this is my new life. I guess I just never lose ever again.
It's got to be a good feeling. And, speaking of DeAndre Hunter, I was thinking about his addition to the team and kind of how it's helped us throughout this stretch. Because I really do feel like he's solidified this rotation. We've seen a couple games now where, Donovan rests, Mobley rests. He slides into the starting lineup and has helped contribute in so many different ways. I don't think that what we have currently seen, since the Boston game, these last couple wins, I don't think it's too dissimilar to some of the losing streaks that we've had this season. Because those losing streaks have been games that have come down to the wire, right? Like you think of the Houston game where it's DG missing some free throws, just a little mistake at the end. Mobley wasn't there. The Indiana game where we're up big in the third quarter, they're missing some guys. We blow that lead and we just don't have enough to kind of get back, get our grip of the rope back at that point. I think now, because to your point that you've brought up several times, we don't have any lineups that suck. Like, it just has insulated us so much further. It has flipped the margin, that very, very thin margin that, some of those very close losses that they've had, didn't go in their favor. Now it's going the other way. Now you don't have a weak lineup where, hey, the starters didn't really have it, which honestly, starting lineup wasn't very good tonight. They did not play well against Miami. In the past, you may have that, and then, they were able to pick on the bench lineup and build that lead. Now, because you don't have that ability when you're playing the Cavs, it makes it so much harder to actually build upon your successes and put the Cavs in a big enough hole that they can't crawl out of.
I do have to fact check you real quick, Justin. My turn. You mentioned Cavs losing streaks. I don't recall any losing.
That's point. They haven't had.
They only have
streak.
One. They only have one losing streak all year.
Those little patches, of like 3 and 5 or whatever. Like,
yes,
a lot of those have been very thin margins.
I saw an opportunity to tease. They've lost 2 in a row, only twice this year, and 3 in a row only once. So depending on your definition of streak, which I know can be can be a contentious
it's definitive.
topic.
It's 3 in a row. Winning streak or losing streak, it's 3 in a row. Major League has defined that, Carter. You can't refute that.
Well, an all-time Cleveland sports movie should be the one to set the record at the end of the day. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and we've talked a lot about all the versatility that Hunter gives them. I thought this was a little thing. Do you remember last year when they signed Marcus Morris? Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that it was nice having a forward on the roster that wasn't just a 3 or at the rim guy. Right. It felt nice just to know that, not that you want to build the whole plane out of it, but it was nice to know that Marcus Morris could pump fake from the corner. If they closed out hard, he could pump, take 2 dribbles in, and then hit a midi. And be relatively comfortable with that in-between game. And we even saw that in the playoffs. He had a couple really good games for us, just being that kind of shooter, being that kind of in-between creator. And watching this game where Miami is in the zone, they're sinking way back towards the rim. Jarrett's not having his most impactful night, coming off a night where he was unbelievable against Chicago.
Yeah.
Which we'll hit on. But instead, you're just hitting Hunter in that soft pocket, and he makes the right call 3 or 4 times. And he's a guy who you want to rise up for that open 12-foot mid-range jumper. Yeah. And that is one of the first times, because he's been a really good Cavalier so far, obviously. But Karras and George hit threes, you know? I felt like, in a way, tonight was one of the first times we really saw that part of the offensive skill set be really meaningful and be a little different than what we had before. Do you agree with that?
I do. It was one of my main notes from this game. I thought the fact that from the start, Kenny's talked about this in the past, where the 2 coaches that run the most zone are he and Eric Spoelstra, dating back to when he was in Brooklyn. And I thought Richard Jefferson made a really good point on the broadcast where he was saying the Cavs know exactly how they're going to attack zone. As soon as they see Miami go to that zone, they have DeAndre Hunter come up to the elbow. They had designated him as that zone buster. And we've talked about in the past how it was really important for Evan Mobley to hit kind of that free throw line jumper, because when teams are sagging off, when teams are going to zone, you need to have that front court player that's consistently and reliably able to hit that shot. And I think it's such a benefit to have DeAndre Hunter have that capability where, yeah, DG can get easy assists by just hitting him quickly there. The anchor of the zone isn't able to come up in time. If they do flash up quick enough, he has the ability to quickly kind of get that first step around him and just one dribble to the basket and finish. I thought it was a really, really interesting wrinkle, and just how confidently they would go to that as soon as Miami would throw the zone. I thought that was really, really noteworthy from this game.
I thought they also opened up a little bit of stuff, they where DG made a really tight quarters pass to Hunter when they were in the middle of a switch, and Davion Mitchell kind of got caught on Hunter's back hip. I thought that was a really nice, because teams are going to switch their bigger wings onto Darius, and try to gum up the rhythm. So if you can slip those actions, if you can just get like a little bit of gap space between, and get Hunter the ball with a little bit of runway towards the hoop, I think that could really pay dividends. And, me and you have also talked about how I don't think, neither of us feel like Hunter is the best playmaker. What's really nice about this Cavs team, and we've said it a lot, is it's just not that hard to play good basketball with this Cavs team. So he found Mobley on that alley-oop where, it's the easiest alley-oop maybe he's ever thrown.
That might be an initiation moment of you finally arrived as a Cleveland Cavalier. You found Mobley trailing in the dunker spot for a lob, right? You're right. That was such just an instinct play from him to find Mobley in that spot in a big moment. It was really, really nice. I liked what we got from DeAndre Hunter. And again, we saw another example of, hey, Jarrett's not having a good night. Miami's playing really small. Bam is anchoring them at 6'9", and they have a bunch of wings. Jarrett's not having a great game. So let's close with Donovan, Darius, Max, DeAndre, and Evan. Having that flexibility to, hey, someone doesn't have it going, we can close this way. And particularly when you look at the teams that they've played recently, a lot of them are downsized, right? And some of that is, just the availability of who they've had on their roster. You look at the injury reports for Chicago and Miami, it's extensive. There's not a lot of kind of choices or levers for those coaches to play. So for them just downsizing on necessity, the Cavs are like, okay, we have an answer for that. We can go to that pretty easily.
Yeah, they have so much roster versatility. Downsize is probably not even the right word, because Hunter is as big as most power forwards.
Fair point.
They're still playing a pretty big lineup out there, and they can, they can still gum things up. I thought, they won this game not with their offense; they won it on the defensive end of the ball. They made timely stops, and it wasn't pretty. Donovan gets stripped by Kyle Anderson, who
terrific defensive play by Anderson, by the way.
I just love Kyle Anderson's game, man. I just think he's such a winner.
You and Ty Jerome both love it.
Yeah. I think he's a winner, and it showed in his minutes. 7, 11, and 7 for him in just 26 minutes. I thought so the Cavs didn't finish perfectly, but I did think they locked in and got stops at the right time. They ran guys off the line. They made guys take that extra step, and I know this is I don't know, maybe a little silly to say, but Duncan Robinson steps out of bounds, and part of that is that the Cavs were really pressuring that play. They were making Miami work through. By the way, any thoughts? Do you think they would have fouled?
I don't think so,
because I didn't feel like fouling up 3 worked crazy well for them against was it Portland?
Yeah. It was a full 18 seconds. I kind of felt like they were going to play it out. It didn't look like they were scrambling to foul in that instance.
It didn't look like it to me either, which I was pleased by.
Because when you think back to that Portland game, they fouled on the catch, right? We're playing you up tight. We're going to foul you on the catch. We're not going to allow you to get a shot off. We're not going to make the same mistake as Detroit. Duncan Robinson caught the ball. I think he even dribbled once and then turned and shot, right?
Yeah.
He happened to have stepped out of bounds, but when you look at Portland,
Yeah,
as the
Strus was
example,
right there.
yeah, the foul occurs in that time if that's what you're intentionally doing. So I don't think they would have in that spot. But I think it's a good win. Like I agree with you. I do feel like they're in a bit of a slump. Some of that is individual guys being in a slump. We'll talk about Darius in a moment because I think that's obviously going to be a big part of it. We talked about all season how when you look at the numbers, the offense goes with Darius. So when Darius is playing poorly and he's shooting poorly, you're going to have some regression on that offensive end of the court. But I think it's a good win because Miami, no matter who they have available, that's going to be a team that's going to play really hard. They're going to be really well coached. They're going to have a game plan ready for you. And, the Cavs are 11-2 this season on the second night of a back-to-back. That's an incredibly encouraging sign. Their only losses,
especially on a night like tonight where Miami did not play yesterday.
Their only two losses are both examples of that, where the other team did not play the night before. And guess who they were? Very try-hard teams. The Miami Heat and the Houston Rockets.
Yep.
Like those are teams that can get you. But
and I believe on
Cavs,
the road for both?
I believe so, yeah. The Cavs being in this spot where I think the Houston one was at home, actually, now that I think about it. But this is another one of those indicators of them being an incredibly good team. Really, really good teams take care of business on the second night of a back-to-back or in 3 and 4 situations. Really, really good teams win on the road. The Cavs had the best winning percentage and the best record on the road this season. The second place team is the Boston Celtics. And that's noteworthy that the Cavs are better on the road than Boston because Boston's a better road team than they are a home team. So not only do the Cavs have the best record in the league, not only do they have a great record on the second night of back-to-backs, not only do they have the best road record, they're just really, really damn good in every single way you look at it. Yeah. They have an elite offense against elite defenses. They have elite defense against elite offenses. This team is really damn good, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they were the first team to clinch a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, they're 8 games up on the 44-18 Boston Celtics. I mean, I know it's funny. You would think I would get bored of reading all the different ways just to basically say that the Cavs are 52-10, and I'm not getting bored. I'm having a lot of fun. Just like looking at all these different contextual things, looking at this team's record because, again, I just think it's really, really special.
There's so many great things that are happening with the Cavs, and sometimes it's hard to keep track of them all. That's why tools like Zoom AI Companion are so important, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about on this game before we move to the Chicago game? Because I got a couple takes from the Chicago game.
The only other thing that I kind of had noted with this game and something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on is I found it was interesting that Kenny changed up the substitution pattern. I think that's something that we really need to continue to keep an eye on of when he uses guys, because we don't have a big sample of everybody being available. I thought it was noteworthy. Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro check in the second quarter. Like normally Dean Wade is a first quarter sub. This game, he opted to go with Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter coming in off the bench first. And then it was Isaac and Dean subbing in together. In the Chicago game, it was Isaac and Javonte Green checking in together, which was just like, hey, we're going to throw defensive nightmares at you, and they're going to be really, really active. But I thought that Isaac and Dean gave them really good minutes when they checked in that second quarter. They really started to get some stops there, and that's when you saw them build up that second quarter lead. So I don't know. We don't have enough information to really get a sense of what the rotation is going to be when they're fully healthy. But I just wanted to kind of highlight that, and just something for us and our listeners to keep an eye on with these future games.
Here's another rotational thought. More no center lineups getting run. There was a stretch where Dean was playing the 5, DeAndre was at the 4. Mm-hmm. Jared only played 25 minutes tonight. Obviously, just wasn't really his night overall. But like, part of me wonders because like in the past, it's been a very by necessity lineup. Like either, someone's hurt, someone's in foul trouble, whatever it may be. Or it's the team is just playing horrific basketball and Kenny wants to try something. Those have been like the three precursors for the no center on the floor lineups for the Cavs. Part of me wonders if Kenny is thinking a little bit more long term about that and getting them some extra run for a playoff run, because who knows if Jared or Evan is going to miss a playoff game and
get in foul trouble
or get in foul trouble or whatever it may be. And you don't want, those five-somes, especially with Hunter on the floor, to be really getting their first run in those spots. So just an idle thought of whether that's it's hard to know because Jared didn't have his best game today. I mean, how many games does Jared have more field goal attempts than points? It's like never. But yeah, just that's my last little observation on the Heat game. Can we move over to the Bulls now?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to, comment on that is,
go ahead.
Maybe some of it is, hey, Jared's not at 100%. Like he's playing with a wrap on his hand. If you were playing with a wrap on your hand and your hand was feeling 100%, it's still going to throw you off a little bit. And, maybe second night of a back-to-back, there's some soreness there or whatever the case may be. He obviously was phenomenal against Chicago, but maybe it is, hey, this is probably a spot where if we could buy Jared a little bit more rest, if we could not overly tax him, let's take a long-term approach. This is an opportunity to experiment with some things. Let's go with some of these no Jared, no Evan lineups. Like who knows kind of what the thinking is there, but I think that there's, a variety of things that could lead to that decision.
And that's why coaching, even the stuff we think we can easily interpret like rotations, is always going to be a bit of a black box.
Yep.
Moving to that Bulls game, Justin, I gotta say, that game was ugly. It was the Cavs just were not guarding. Talen Horton-Tucker was on his revenge tour against the world.
He was in the role of Zachary Risache in that game, where just
burrowing
non-shooter that can't miss.
Couldn't miss, was getting to the rim every time he wanted. Collins was having a great game. It was just not their game. And then they scored 32 points in 5 minutes. And I was sitting there thinking, watching that fourth quarter, watching that 7-minute to 2-minute stretch in the fourth, just giggling at what I was watching. And I left it feeling like, I think that is my new favorite Cavalanche. It was not the most important Cavalanche that has happened. They've had way more high stakes ones. They've had probably better individual play, but there's something about Javonte Green launching a logo 3 and it barely even hitting the net. It was so pure. And it was just like every possession down, a different really fun thing happened. It felt, with this team, I do think they're so fueled by joy and not fueled by, all right, now it's time to get serious, boys. That's not their energy when they turn it on. And even Jarrett kind of having the I'm him moment, and then he breaks out laughing.
Yeah,
couldn't hold it for 3
seconds.
I don't know, man. That was my absolute. I think that's my new favorite Cavalanche after probably the original one against the Pacers with Kevin hitting Jetty in the corner with the behind the back pass.
Yeah, man, and we should probably get to Kevin in just a little bit here, but you're right. And what that run against Chicago kind of made me think about was I was thinking to, our analysis from the past couple of years where we talked about how the Cavs' secret and the reason why they're so good is they play really hard. They're connected all the time. This isn't a team that can just kind of flip the switch. When we think back to 2 years ago, the 22-23 season, not a ton of depth on the roster at that time because they just made a consolidation trade. So when I look at that run against Chicago, it kind of resonated with me that, we're now at that point where we can kind of flip the switch. We have enough depth. We have that ability.
That, I don't think.
I don't like that either. I'm just saying, we now have, that level of talent, that level of experience where, hey, is a little bit of switch flipping here. I do still think, echoing back to what I said at the start of the podcast, I think how we're playing right now is very, very similar to how we played in some of those funks and some of those lulls and slumps in the season. And I'm very interested to see, do we correct that before it bites us? Before, we lose 2 out of 3, or before we have a loss to a team that we shouldn't lose against, without that negative reinforcement as an end result from the game? Are we able to kind of correct things and get out of those slumps and amend some of those bad habits? Or does the fact that we keep getting positive reinforcement with these comeback wins end up resulting in us having one of those prolonged slumps that takes us off that pace that we're keeping an eye on of, hey, can they get 67 wins? That's something I'm really interested in, because I feel like that first slump that we had came directly after we had a few comeback wins and games where, we just kind of took over in the fourth quarter after not playing our best basketball before.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a consideration, because it's not just the Portland, Chicago, Miami. I don't think they played that good of a game against the Celtics. I think they had great moments. There were moments of greatness, but our dear friend DH in the Discord and I were kind of going back and forth in our game thread channel during that, just being like, quit playing the dribble against Jason Tatum when all he wants is a step back. The little details I thought were not as sharp against Boston as they have been in the past.
Maybe.
I just, so I don't think this is just a matter of they just were kind of playing with their food. I think they're going through a little bit of a stretch where they're just not quite as sharp, which is normal. And normally it's way less fun than this, as I kind of said at the beginning of the podcast. So yeah, it was definitely, it was the most fun switch flip possible. It was okay. And it felt like all they needed to do was lock in on defense, and then everything just started unlocking for them. They got running. They got Jarrett got going with a couple two-way plays, and oh my goodness, was Jarrett good in that game. I mean, that was kind of my wider segue, which is when I watch him do that, Justin, sometimes I think you need to shoot more, Jarrett. Because the touch with his left hand as he's catching in traffic and stepping through and protecting the ball and in weaving through the traffic to finish. Some of those finishes were unbelievable. And sometimes I forget how good his touch is in that traffic environment. I think sometimes Jarrett can have games where it's if they're in front of him, he just kind of keeps the ball moving and doesn't play selfishly.
Yeah.
And in a game where Evan's out, you kind of see him be well, I'm going to need to attack when I get the ball as a roll man. I can't look to play team ball. I just got to attack the hoop. And I left that game just being Jarrett, you can do that against a lot of teams.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes I think it's on him. Sometimes, it's, hey, maybe they needed a reminder of what Jarrett can do. And, often with big men, they're reliant on other people to feed them the ball. Right. And I think one of the great things about Jarrett is he's able to recognize what the defense is giving him as well. It wasn't just that he had 25 and 17 on the night against Chicago.
And
he also
30
had 3
minutes,
assists.
by the way. Oh my God.
That's insane. He also had, 3 assists, because he can recognize when the defense is trying to cheat and take things away from him and find the open man. He had 2 steals, because that sense of team basketball and where the passes are going to go translates to the defensive side of the ball. He's just a really, really intelligent player. And obviously, I don't think that he's playing at 100% health right now. But seeing him still have a game like that, as he works his way back to full health, was really, really encouraging to see. And, I think he's a big, big part of what makes this team so special. And I think you're right. I think there's times where, hey, we could probably get him going to the basket a little more. Like that was honestly one of my gripes with our start against Boston was I felt like, hey, we're not really attacking the basket a whole lot. Like I understand that Al Horford has given us issues at times, but we're having just a little bit too much reverence for him. Like we were able to get Jared going in that game against Kristaps Porzingis. Like I think what did he have, 18 and 17 or something
Yeah.
crazy like that in the game
He
against
was
Boston.
phenomenal.
Like it's not like this is a matchup where he can't have success, and you would think it'd be even more easy to get some of those easy buckets against Boston without Porzingis in there. So I thought that maybe that was something that they could have done better to start that game. To your point about them not playing great, but I think I would disagree just a little bit overall. I I get where you were coming from with that game, but I think some of it was just, man, they're hitting absolutely everything. So we're going to nitpick, the nuances of defense when in general, normally Jason Tatum misses a lot of those shots.
Yeah, 100% fair. I thought their detail work just wasn't at what I would consider their usual standard. Going back to the Bulls game, I think the other guy we got to talk about is Javonte Green, who gets his first rotation minutes. I thought it was a great lever to pull from Kenny, though. I mean, he said he was planning on it when he was doing his post game availability. It wasn't a break glass in case of a Javonte Green. This was like the plan to put him in early in this game, and I thought him and Okoro together really changed the entire energy of the game. They started closing out. I mean, boy, are those arms long for Green. He covers ground so well, dude. And he's balanced, and he's one of those guys where the contest is closer than the opposing player thinks it's going to be as they go up. That wingspan, I think, closes the gap really, really well, and he's on balance and all that fun stuff. I thought he had about as good of a debut as you could have expected. What were your thoughts from him?
Yeah, I thought he was really fun. I liked him and Okoro checking in together. I kind of like having him as a guy for Okoro to kind of like get mentored from to some extent, right? Because Javonte Green is not as good of a 3-point shooter as Isaac Okoro, but he, with his activity and the way that he flies around the court, that is exactly how you buy yourself, time. That's how you buy yourself opportunity. I think that he, as we said after the buyout, I think he's a great insurance piece because he can play 2 through 4 with that activity level and the length that you reference. But just the way he crashes the glass, the way that he's always moving, that's exactly the type of player that Isaac Okoro needs to be, so that we're not just living and dying with the 3-point shot. You are, filling up the box score. And speaking of which, Okoro had one flying rebound tonight that jumped off the screen. Like, he is looking athletic. He's giving them great minutes. But I like having two options there, right? Because you don't know, hey, is Isaac Okoro going to have issues in the playoffs again? I don't think it's as likely because I think he's being used in different ways rather than, standing in the corner and his success being judged on whether or not he hits that shot. But if he does have a series where, things aren't going his way and you need to go to someone that can bring that defensive stopper kind of mentality, Javonte Green is an option you can go to, right? Depth is overrated in the playoffs. Options are not.
Well, I think there's also just the factor of Okoro and Green being the best guard defenders on the roster.
Yeah.
And I feel like him showing that, like, hey, I can come in and muck up the game against a team that's playing a lead initiator kind of guard that is giving us some trouble. I thought it just gives them a little bit of a different option, I felt like they guarded different with Okoro and Green out there than they would have guarded with Okoro and Wade out there. And I love Wade as a defender, but there's just it's a different style. It's a different versatility for them to have. So I think that's what's really exciting about the guy is that he's kind of a 2 through 4 on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really have, I don't even know if Okoro's that really. He's more of a 1 to 3 on defense. But just him being a little
Hey, he's
longer.
done a good job on Paolo. Like, we probably shouldn't speak as confidently in Javonte Green's ability to go 2 through 4 because we haven't really seen it.
I just feel like I've seen him play a lot of 4 in his career.
It's true.
But I don't know. It just I felt like they had a slightly different kind of dude on the roster, and I've said this a lot. When you're looking for deep depth pieces that are not going to be in your day-to-day rotation, you want one of two things. You either want a guy who plugs into exactly what you do and provides insulation, or you want a guy who does something completely different, that like has a skill or an energy that maybe isn't quite matched by anyone else on the roster. And I feel like Green kind of represents some version of a middle ground there, where he isn't quite an Okoro clone. Like, there are some meaningful differences.
Like him being a freak athlete.
Yeah, but he can do both. He can do the job even if he's going to do it differently. So I feel like he's a nice blend. And I mean, just remember, he was starting games for that Pelicans team, and now he can't. Now he's not even in the rotation here. So I just feel like it's such an embarrassment of riches for this team in the middle of the roster and now at even the bottom of the roster.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was a really, really fun debut. The depth of this team continues to just really blow me away, and I think it's going to serve them really well over these last 20 games of the season. I can't believe there's still 20 games left. That's nuts, but it's going to be a challenging March for them.
Do you want the playoffs to get here, or do you still are you still enjoying the ride? And that, I guess those aren't mutually exclusive, but I'm just kind of curious how you feel about it.
I want the playoffs to get here just because I've had so much post All-Star break, like PTSD when it comes to injuries and other things like that. Like part of me wants to see more problem solving. I want to see guys work through some stuff. I want to see different lineup combinations. I'd like to see, Hunter with the core 4. That still hasn't happened since his first game. Like there's things that I still want to see from the regular season, but I also just want this very, very good team that I know is very, very good to be whole and tested in the playoffs. Like I'm really, really interested to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of it. I'm enjoying the regular season still. There's always you only have so many games left in the year counter that I'm always looking at as a guy who really, really loves watching basketball and really, really loves watching the Cavs. But then there's also the I don't know how much more I need them to prove to me in this setting.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I want to see them, like, can they get to 67, 68, 69 wins? I want to see. The streak is very motivating to me right now. you know, it's really nice to have this. Like, if they were,
it'd be kind of cool to like set the franchise record win streak and then beat that win streak that you set earlier this season. Like setting the franchise record twice in a year, it would be a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah. Before we went live, I asked you, like, where do you think the streak ends? And you threw out a couple things like Milwaukee or maybe Memphis, and I'm throwing out a couple things.
Maybe Brooklyn, because we haven't been playing well.
But it was so funny. But then I just said, I was like, well, they never lose, so I don't know where to look. I don't know where the signs are coming. Where is the there's not enough track record for losses for this team for me to see. Like, with the LeBron teams, I could see a loss a mile away.
There were tremors before the earthquake. You're like, I know exactly what this means. Oh, there's a loss coming in one day.
Like, even if they were great, even if they were in good form, I knew when a loss was coming. And now I just am like, every game's kind of an adventure. So I am still very much enjoying the journey. But, like, I mean, you've seen my DMs. I'm perpetually angsty about injuries because I just so
You're
desperately
overly angsty.
I know I am. It's because I just so desperately want this team to get to the playoffs whole and, like, in good form, so we can really, without a doubt, know.
And I really do think that you should take advantage of the resources available to you. I am the ultimate barometer and like record keeper of every minor ailment that has ever happened to a Cleveland Cavalier.
Yeah, but I think you're zagging just because I'm too angsty.
I'm not zagging. I'm not zagging.
I think you're just making fun of me.
No, sometimes I am, but I make it very clear when I'm making fun of you. I honestly think, like if we're looking at it, DG has not been the same since, he took his fall against the Knicks. I think that's very, very clear. But when I look at the Boston game, I thought he was moving around well. I thought he actually played a good game. I was higher on that game than you were by quite a bit. I look at these last few games. What?
By quite a bit. Chill.
Quite a bit. Yeah, I'm feeling words
sneaking
here.
That one in.
Most of the words I say aren't intentional, Carter. That's just me filling space so my brain can get to the next sentence. But when I look at like his recent games, I think that a lot of this doesn't look like he's not getting to his spots. I feel like he is just in a slump from a shooting standpoint. I thought the game against Chicago was actually interesting because that was one of the first times I could remember, maybe since the first game against Boston, where the missed shots were getting him to start taking really bad shots. And, maybe you could spin that as, hey, it's better than him fading into the background and not shooting anymore like we used to see in the past. When we're trying to win a championship and we're at this standard, neither extreme is the right answer. I would prefer,
The extreme is play good.
Yeah, no. Honestly, what the middle ground is what happened against Boston. I thought he took good shots. I will live with the misses that he took. I honestly like Miami closer to that. I think for the most part, it was a pretty efficient game. I thought the passing was really good. If there wasn't that one grenade at the end of the shot clock, it probably was a pretty good shooting night from him. But in general, like just play your game. Take the shots as they come. I understand when you're in a slump, you want to shoot your way out of it. But I feel like he's moving around well, and this is just one of those things that happens in a 4-game stretch throughout the course of a year.
Here's hoping. I felt like he played completely fine tonight. Didn't have the most efficient night, but still had 10 assists to 2 turnovers. Got to his spots pretty well. I felt like the offense was humming pretty well with him on the floor. So
yeah, the only thing I'll say about him getting to his spots is he didn't take a shot inside the 3-point arc in the first half, and it felt just maybe a little like Fred VanVleet floating around on the outside instead of getting that drive and kick game going. So maybe I would have liked to see a little bit of that, but I thought overall it was a fine game. He turned his ankle in the fourth quarter against Miami. Who we'll see what happens there, given how cautious they've been with injuries. And maybe if they feel like he could benefit from a rest game, there's an opportunity Friday against Charlotte, get him ready for the Bucks. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But I honestly just think it's a slump, and I don't think that it's any surprise that when DG's in a bit of a slump, the Cavs as a whole go in a bit of a slump. Because
which is why I said I care more about his A game in a series against Boston than anyone else's because of that. I think he really is the thing. I think the thing that makes us the most special right now is our, NBA record offense. Mm-hmm. And the one who makes our offense the most special, the most consistently, your boy Darius Garland.
Yeah. Hey, I'll add this just because I did a little bit of research after the last podcast because I was trying to figure out exactly where his defense was at for those 4 games, just to see how many field goals is he allowing, how is his man shooting versus Darius compared to when they're not playing against Darius. I did find the NBA.com tracking data says he's allowing 7.5 made field goals a game. So 17 points per game was what he was allowing. His man, when defended by Darius, shot 7% worse than how they otherwise shot. So they were shooting 48.9% from 2-point range. Within 6 feet, actually, we're shooting 15% worse. So when you're talking about, okay, is it a net positive when he's out there if his shot's not falling? He did average 19 in those 4 games. If you take out that first one, 22, he was playmaking really well those last few games. So I still stand by everything I said in those games. I think that he's rushing some of those shots. He needs to settle down and maintain his composure against Boston. But for all the talk about the defense, and I think some of that was influenced by how much the broadcast was talking about it, even though, there weren't really that many field goal attempts, period, versus Darius. For all that talk, I thought it was worthwhile to look at the numbers and see, hey, they're actually shooting worse than expected when they play against Darius.
I agree. I don't have anything to add. I mean, that matches my eye test. I care way more about his offense than I worry about his defense.
Me too.
In this series and or in that potential series, and I just want to see it. Want to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, because Boston's going to play mismatch basketball. Like, listening to Simmons and Russillo, like that was their number one complaint about the team. It's, hey, they don't run anything. They just say, okay, who's the shortest guy on the court? We're going to go at him. Let's force a switch. We're going to play isolation basketball wherever we have the mismatch. You sub someone out for Darius for defense reasons, they're going to do the exact same thing to Donovan. They did that last year in the playoffs. It's not about how they are as a defender. It's, hey, that guy's shorter than our guys. We're going to try to shoot over them.
Absolutely, brother.
Anything else before we wrap this up? Let's talk a little bit about Kevin Love, because that tribute got me in my feels.
Good idea. It's just nice to see him back. Nice to see it was cool even seeing Angel working sideline. It was just a nice little Cavs reunion. Tristan and Kevin coming and mobbing Richard Jefferson. I always go back to what a special locker room that was and how clearly bonded they are all from that experience. Mm-hmm. And it was also cool to hear Kevin say that if he ever makes the Hall of Fame, he'd love to be inducted as a Cavalier. That's special, because if you look at the front end of his time here, you weren't sure it was going to be a happy marriage.
No,
you weren't sure that he was going to remember his time in Cleveland fondly. So the fact that he's going out of his way to say something like that just goes to show how special his time here was for him. And he was a very special Cavalier, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, he really was. And I think it's a good example of how tenuous the team building process can be at times, and discussing fit when you have expectations and the pressure that puts on. But Kevin went through a lot with the Cavs. He was there for a lot of really big moments and stepped up. Really cool tweet here from Tom Withers. Kevin Love said after the game, he's been told his jersey will be retired by the Cavs and hung next to Nick Gilbert's in Rocket Arena.
Oh yeah,
which I think is really, really cool. And
also, shout out to Angel wearing the bow tie pin. I thought that was a nice touch.
I'm glad you mentioned that she was there for the coverage. The whole kind of Cavs reunion feel for this game was really good. And I always enjoy RJ on the call. Another national game, Carter. We just keep winning all these national TV games. Put the Cavs on TV more often.
No kidding, man. Unbelievable. What a run.
Yeah, and we even give closer games now, because those first few that they put us on, they were 20, 30 point loss, wins by the Cavs. People are tuning out in the middle of the third quarter. Now we're providing entertainment. Now we're providing
comebacks.
Made,
let me tell you.
Yeah, we know exactly how to pander, what sells, what sells on TV, and what sells is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.